Hello and welcome to the first tea party in a while from a rainy, cold-ass, miserable London. And I'm moving over to probably super hot and sunny Mexico somewhere.
Oh my God, Joel, it's like 32 degrees. It's 9:40 in the morning. I'm sweating already. But mate, I'm having a great time out here in Mexico. I'm out here on my honeymoon and I've made my apologies to my wife, but taking time out for Rabbit Hole Stories. But hey, no, having a great time out here. And we thought we would just check in with each other just to see what's going on with the podcast and check in with ourselves and invite you guys along with that. So here we are. We've been going since, like me, 5-6 months now, isn't it, Joel?
Proof of Keys Day, 7 months? 7.5?
Oh wow. Okay, good.
So we've oh, now your image cleared. Oh yeah, it is a good background. I'll see it now.
Oh, you
Sorry,
can see the background.
like it popped. Yeah, now it popped. That's nice.
Hold on, let me span my thing around a little bit. It's no, there's too much sun. It's not going to do it with this crappy Windows laptop.
It's nice, mate. It's nice. So yeah, we've been going 7.5 months. Obviously, we did start a bit early on, like Christmas Eve, I think, was the first episode, but just to get it out there and officially start January 3rd. And at first it's been a slow-ish start, I would say, like most of the things you put on the internet. But, since July 1st, I think we can say, or maybe mid-June, the numbers have just been going up and it's really fun to see.
No, it's amazing. And do you know what? I was listening back to Bailey's episode, which is out this week, and his book, Orange Pilled, and the things he was saying about having this indelible mark signaling people's journey into Bitcoin, which is exactly what we're doing here at Rabbit Hole Stories as well. And it's nice to see that there's like this archive of stories from people from all over the world with all different routes into Bitcoin. And we just literally go down a rabbit hole with them and see where we end up together. And I think there's some magic in that. And I think some people are starting to recognize that this is quite significant in, listening to people's journey into Bitcoin, because a lot of it does resonate with people. A lot of people get in the same way. And no matter what way you really get in, really, there's still that connection to Bitcoin. And we all find it in the end. So, yeah, I think there's something quite magical about it.
Haven't you also noticed, I mean, we're relatively small, still speaking to obviously other podcasts. And full disclosure, we will, by the time this episode goes out, probably crack 6,600 downloads in total. So you guys can make up whatever you want with that number, divided by the amount of months we've been running. But July really has sort of been that inflection point, and now we've been running quite well. And it's fun to get to meet people in real life at a meetup, whatever, and they tell you like, oh, I've been listening to the latest episode, and like, I really like the guest. I didn't know that this guy or this girl existed, or that they did this. And I think that's probably the most rewarding thing, if you get the feedback of people actually listening. And, maybe also get some criticism. Like, I had someone tell me, you do way too much with your hands and stuff, and please don't move around that much. This is really fun. So, like, seeing that people actually watch and care and maybe have suggestions, I think that's what keeps me going, at least. How about you, Ian? What was your sort of aha moment or your eureka moment?
I think for me, it is about the interconnections that we all have, no matter where we're from, no matter what our past or history is. We are all interconnected in some way through Bitcoin. But going deeper than that, not just Bitcoin, there's so much we all have in common, despite our differences. And I think when you really actually afford the time to people and give them the airspace to tell their story, there's so much that we can all connect with in many different ways with each of the stories out there. So I think that's what gives me the fuel to, come onto this podcast twice a week and hear people's route into Bitcoin. It's just a fascinating. I feel so privileged to be part of this journey into Rabbit Hole Stories. So yeah, that's the magic for me.
And it really is what was the best way to describe it? Bitcoin is like a magnet where people have had sometimes, horrible stories. I mean, we had Ivan basically telling us in the first 5 minutes that his dad killed his mum, and thank God for Bitcoin, he had something to now save for his younger siblings or something. And I kind of go like, Holy shit, that's crazy. And then we had other people, maybe not being able to preserve their wealth because they've grown up somewhere in Africa or whatever, and they found Bitcoin as a way to get out of this or now send money back. So it's very ironic that mostly there's tragedy involved in some way, shape, or form, and Bitcoin is often a solution for these things. And I'm sure we'll have guests on who, come in and say, hey, I mainly went in for the speculation part, and probably I still am, which I think is fine as well. If people want to make money this way, who are we to judge, right? But it really is interesting that this place of pain almost is sort of the birth of their rabbit hole stories. And don't you have the same thing? The minute they start talking like, oh, and then I found Bitcoin and I realized this, and often when I listen, I go like, oh, they could go down this avenue or that avenue, and then they go down that avenue. So that's really cool to hear that at the end of the day, like you said, whatever we believe in on stuff, we all go down the same route. And we literally stack the same thing, except if you're like a BSV or a Bitcoin casher, because then you might need to visit a mental institute. The normies between us, we usually stack the same thing.
What it's also done for me, to be honest, is it's reminded me of my own sort of privilege in life. And look, here I am in Mexico in this wonderful hotel, on my honeymoon. And I'm still able to have the time to sort of talk to these people. I've got an enormous amount of time that I can dedicate. Excuse me, the tropical birds around me, but
nice place.
it's kind of it reminds me of my financial privilege. It reminds me of the privilege of where I was born, because not everyone gets to choose where they're born in the world, right? And they just like have to survive in the environment they're in. So it does remind me of listening to different people, like we're talking to Mary Imasuen about life in Africa, and then spending some time out here in Mexico. It's quite clear that people out here are actually grafting, and then to discover Bitcoin is an extra hurdle there for them than there would be for the likes of me. So that's something that I think I want to bring more into Rabbit Hole Stories, is trying to remember people's hurdles. So yeah.
So have you noticed, because I know you're in a resort, but have you noticed Bitcoin stuff happening around you in Mexico? I'm curious now, because people are speculating that they are going to be one of the next countries. Apparently also IBEX, the company, had people on the Mexican house floor, I think it was, a few days or a few hours ago. So have you seen that in some way, shape or form? Or have you been the British geezer on holiday?
No, mate, every opportunity I've had, I've been asking like cashiers at hotels. I've been out to the marketplace. I went out to Tulum, where the ruins are. And everywhere I go, I say, oh, do you accept Bitcoin? Do you want some Bitcoin? A lot of people haven't even heard of Bitcoin, let alone having to accept it. So I was a little bit surprised by that. But then obviously they don't have the full access that we do in the West. So maybe that is a part to play in it, but it's certainly not, from what I've seen, despite my attempts, a lot of recognition of what Bitcoin is over here at the moment. But maybe that's just because of where I am in the country on the coastline, where there's a lot of holiday makers and stuff like that. So I don't know. Yeah,
definitely. I think if you go to, from what I've heard from people, Catainia and these things, they have people selling water bottles on the street with Bitcoin and Lightning and stuff. And it's still early enough that not everyone is getting back in. So, yeah, and I was interested. Maybe you had an orange pill moment.
Maybe. But where are we going to go in the future, Joël, with this Rabbit Hole Stories? What's your wish for Rabbit Hole Stories?
Honestly, if we can continue the exact same way we've been doing now, so pumping out a new episode on Mondays, ideally with guests on, if there's no conflict of scheduling and stuff, that'd be ideal. A small preview or spoiler, we've got guests or we've got episodes secured until the 16th of October. I had to quickly do the math in my head. So it should be good on that front. And if we continue this road, it gets exciting. And honestly, for all the listeners, if you see us at a conference or, if you're in London once or in Mexico now, maybe you'll see Ian. We also have listeners in Mexico. And you want to say hi, come and say hi. If you have suggestions, make those suggestions, because this is what the show's all about. We run also on the Value for Value network. So if you want to send some sats, we're very much appreciative of that. But also if you have value to add in terms of suggestions, how to improve the show, maybe new formats, ideas, shoot and send them our way, because we're more than happy to implement these. And, you know, if we could, Ian, I would record a new rabbit hole story every day. But, you know, we do have fiat mining jobs, right, to get back to.
Yeah,
how about
exactly.
you?
And I think that for me, I feel that this is not really our show. This is everyone's show, because everyone has a story to tell, and everyone's welcome to come on to share their story into Bitcoin. Because, like we keep saying, despite whatever you might think, whatever your politics are, we all understand Bitcoin, and maybe we can meet somewhere and understand each other under the banner of Bitcoin. And I think that's what gives me the inspiration for this podcast. And it's so bullish to see that we're growing and being more recognizable in the space. It's obviously making its mark, and the more people that come into Bitcoin, the more stories there are going to be, right? So we can only ever really grow. And like I said, there's a constant archive there now for people to look back over the years, just to sort of see people's different routes into Bitcoin over the span of time. So that's really great.
Amazing. Ian, I don't want to hold you up any longer, and also not the listeners, because it should be a quick update, because otherwise your honeymoon turns into a divorce-noon. Is that a name? I want you back with your wife on one plane and not in separate
I don't think she cares much about me at this moment. She's out by the pool, sipping on some tequila or something like that. So yeah, nice. It's all good. It's all good. So I'm going to go and join her now. But good to see you, Joël, over in London. And
you too.
I'll catch up with you next time, buddy.
See you next week.